I'm Shirley Smith, presenting Talk About Parenting Classic. I'm bringing back the best of our shows from back in the day. People like to say, oh, but kids are different. Well, no, they're not, but too often their parents are. Will these back in the day shows stand the test of time? Does parenting change? You be the judge. Welcome to Talk About Parenting with Shirley Smith Classic.
You don't have to take a class to be one. There are no final exams. It's a full-time job, and then some. It pays less than minimum wage, and it can provide the greatest rewards in life. So let's talk about parenting with Shirley Smith.
I'm Shirley Smith, and this is Talk About Parenting. I know I get people who go, well, we know it's you. Well, I just want to make sure because, we're using guest hosts now. So I am the real host. I'm Shirley Smith, and I'm here today. And today's topic, we're going to have two guests, both parents, but we're going to talk about two very different kinds of parent activism. So we're going to start with, and I'm not really good at everybody's name, but I've rehearsed this. Let's hope I got it right. It's Teramae.
Right.
I got it. Yeah. Okay. So she is a very active parent in a school where some of her children attend. And not only is she active in that school, I suspect she's kind of active throughout the school district. So you're going to hear from her as to how she got active, why she is active, and the heartbreaks of being an activist, but the challenges. Did I kind of frame that where you can move in? Yes. So how did you rise to the level of activism when you seem to be a nice, quiet lady who might be at home baking pies?
I think, first of all, I want you to know I have 4 sons. My oldest is 27-year-old. I have a 13-year-old, I have 11-year-old, and I have a 7-year-old. So I thought, first of all, I wanted to really give my kids an opportunity. But I had to do one thing, first of all. So I had to go back to school, better myself. And I thought, okay, you know what? This will help my children in the long run.
So you wanted to set an example.
So when I was younger, my oldest son went to private school because I had to work. So having that idea that, what, I was trying to do the best for my kid, going to private school, spending all this money, and I really got to know what it was like to be in a private school. Everything is almost perfect. You live in like a magic world, and you're welcome, and you're asked, and you participate. And so then when later on, many years later, as a matter of fact, for the last 6 years, I volunteer at my son's school, Washington Middle School.
But this is a public school now.
Yes, this is a public school. So I found it was, and I just live around the corner. So it's like, was taking my neighborhood back. I was taking my school back because I had never thought for all those years that my kids would have to go to public school. But life changes, so I had to, make a commitment. Okay, what do I do now? I cannot send my children to private school because I have 3 kids now. They're too expensive. So I really have to look at the whole thing and where I live and say, what, I lived long enough in the same neighborhood, except that I didn't know anybody. So I thought, what, okay, I'll start with the school, get to know everybody. But it also was a shock. It was a shock.
So was the school happy to see you coming? Come on, this is a truthful show.
To come to your show?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't say that clearly because I hope you haven't told them you were coming to my show. No, what I'm asking is, when you say you had this history of being with private schools and things were going like really nice in private school, then you wound up having more children and the expense took you the route of public school, which was quite different. Mm-hmm. So you went there, and I heard you say taking back, which lets me know a little hint of something.
Correct.
So then came my question, and I guess I didn't frame it correctly. Was the school happy to see you coming to the school to take it back?
I don't think they were ready.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean by taking it back?
Taking it back means establishing a relationship, on a one-on-one level with the principal, with others at the school district, because that's where I figure the school really needs help. I kind of looked around the demographics, who were the parents and who were not participating in learning more about public schools, because I did not know anything about public schools. So I took an idea and I said, you know what, I have to go to the school district. Must be somebody that can help the school. So I went to the school district to reach out and say, you know what, our school needs help. So that's when I began to be an advocate for the school, because I knew that there was nothing that I really could do except ask for others to help the school.
So you got other parents involved.
And I got parents to come with me, and then to make him learn that, you know what, yes, parents can make a difference, but you have to, I guess somebody has to be the leader.
Haven't you been on the picket line, though? Posters,
Yeah.
She's like, I just bake pies at home, cookies, I'm a nice little, No, you've organized parents.
That's right.
Large numbers of parents.
Yes.
How many parents did you put together?
Oh gosh, through these last few months, we had to get I think say 200 parents
200
involved.
parents. This is
Yes.
truly an activist.
Yes.
200 parents. Now, I've had a lot of history with schools, and I suspect that they were not any happier with you. Number one, just you by yourself, but they sure weren't happy to know that you could garner 200 parents.
Yeah, because they didn't think. They didn't think, first of all, that we can really bring all of a sudden 200 parents to try to fight to keep our school open.
Now, tell me, what would you say to other parents who kind of sit back and go, oh, I'm not really happy with what's going on? What would you tell those parents?
I would have to say, don't give up. Reach out for help. There's people, the state of California, there's there's Los Angeles County Office of Education. Reach out, make a phone call, and try to find someone there that can give you a little guidance, or reach out around the neighborhood, because there's people in the community that really care about the school. So try to reach out and find a little, base. That's what I did. I tried to reach out. I had known a lot of people, but when the time needed, that's when they came to my help. Then I was able to bring everybody in, and more people started coming on. So it's like, you know what? It's just, and then be involved. Go to
So did you have
meetings,
to go and knock on
know.
doors and say, hi, I'm Soleil, or they just kind of knew you, so you picked up the phone, or you joined the PTA, or you
That's
baked
right.
cookies, or
Yeah.
what did you do?
I got very involved in the PTA.
Okay.
PTA, and then another sports group that came to the school. So I was like a sports coordinator. That's what
I see.
That's what I've been. I'm a sports coordinator, involved in the PTA, and bring the kind of excitement, what makes kids want to come to school. Okay, maybe academically, it's kind of tough, it's a challenge, but maybe there's activities after school. It's basketball. I was very involved with basketball and soccer and swimming. So name everything that you can think of. That's
Okay.
where I was.
Okay.
Everything, and then committees at the school district, because I think that's where, to be like an organizer that I am, I had to be involved in many activities, and in the PTA, fundraising, money for the school. And you know what? I know that I can look back and say, you know what? I've done a great job, because you know what? I got other people involved to feel like, you know what? They can make a difference.
So who are you making mad when you do these things?
I think it's, they see me, I am,
Okay, a troublemaker.
a troublemaker.
Yeah, this is the honest
That's right.
show.
That's right. I'm
I-
outspoken. I'm the
Yeah.
first one
Okay.
to say, why can we make it better, or where there's a problem, and I bring the issue, and then at that moment, then everybody starts picking up and want to say something, and then I'm like, say, okay, let's go back one step forward and let's try to fix.
So are
a
you
problem.
nice when you do this?
Sometimes it doesn't seem that I'm nice.
Well, you know, if you've got an issue
Yeah.
and you have to face it, you can't always be Miss Polite. You know, my mother used to always go, oh, geez, you know, I didn't raise you like this. But, you know, our mothers raise us to be nice people. But sometimes when there's issues there and you're an advocate and you're an activist, niceness has to take a back seat.
That's right.
So how were you able to cope with, well, okay, people saying that you're a troublemaker? Does that bother you?
At times it bothers me because they don't understand me. I think they think, you know, I'm a troublemaker, but they don't see where I can come in and try to fix things up or give my ideas, you know, my suggestions. So that's where parent involvement is making that both of them, the administration and the school and the parents work together, because that's what we really need. Times are changing, and that's what needs to happen. We need to make a stronger band.
Making your voice heard.
That's
I want to
right.
thank you so much for being a guest, bringing to the attention of other parents one phase of parent activism. After our reading segment, we're going to come back and we're going to have another guest that's going to talk about how he tackled issues in terms of his kids going to school. Thank you again, Soleil.
Thank you, Shirley.
Good job.
Talk about parenting with Shirley Smith. We're reading everywhere.
What is the importance? We've heard from people here their experiences in terms of being read to and in terms of reading. What is it that our children are gaining when an adult reads to them?
What I'm looking for in our situation is to really have pleasure in the reading experience. And we call that a shared reading experience. It's like, think about when you were a youngster and you crawled up on the lap of the most favorite person in your life, and they surrounded you with their love and took you to places far away by opening up a book. Okay, that's the kind of experience we want whenever you're reading aloud to children.
We're reading at the Magic Johnson Theater, and it's really true. You can read anywhere, everywhere, anywhere. I'm Pat McCoy.
I'm Ferrari Delafonte.
And we're reading today Arthur's Friendship Treasure. After dinner, Mother and Father did the dishes. Can you hear what they're saying? Asked Arthur. They're worried about the new carpet, whispered DW. Suddenly the door opened. We've decided you may have a puppy if you can take care of it, said Father. Wow, said Arthur. But, said Mother, first you need to show us you're responsible. How will I ever prove I'm responsible? Asked Arthur. The best way I know is to get a job, said DW. Then you can pay back the $7 you owe me. Ka-ching, went her cash register. Arthur wondered what kind of job he could do. You could work for my dad at the bank, said Fern. He needs some new tellers. If I were you, I'd get a job at Joe's junkyard, crushing old cars, said Blinky. Do something that you like, said Francine. That gave Arthur an idea.
Reading aloud does so many things. Reading to children does so many things for kids. It helps them to see that you value reading. You, as an adult, are taking time to sit and read. There must be something good about this reading. You're taking time from your busy schedule to read. There must be something special about reading.
Do something that you like, said Francine. That gave Arthur an idea. I'll take care of other people's pets, said Arthur. Then Mom and Dad will know I can take care of my own. Arthur and Francine put up signs to advertise his new business. His family helped too. Arthur waited and waited. Then just before bedtime, the phone rang. "Hello," he said. "Arthur's pet business. How may I help you?" "Yes, no, when, where, great."
One of the reasons we want read alouds to happen with kids is that it encourages the development of vocabulary. You can tell those children that have been read to by the size of their vocabulary. In schools, I know as teachers we can recognize that that's happening in the home because children's vocabulary is so rich. And one of the tips I have, first off, is that you revisit books, and is to entertain and amuse and provide the wonderful recreation of reading aloud to the child. So they're the most important ones. I really want to encourage you to read a book that you like, because I mean you're picking it for them, but you're going to be doing the work, so you will have to make sure that it's something you're comfortable with and that you enjoy, so that you can impart that joy of reading.
Okay, there we are. They're your kids, not your friends. My motto, my book. I believe in this. I think I've never said that I actually didn't believe in it when I first heard it, because my mother's friend, you know, mothers never know very much. Parents don't until you're a parent yourself. At any rate, she used to tell me to remember this about my children, and I thought, oh, what a nut she was. But you know what? By the time those children just got to be mid people, I realized they weren't my friends. At any rate, I'm going to read just a little bit, because you know I have to introduce you to the book, and it is available for you at the library. And this is just a little paragraph or two from the conclusion. Everywhere I go, I hear the same comment: our children are in trouble. Just about every parent I talk to, rich, poor, black, white, it just seems they all believe they've lost control. However, there does remain a handful of strong parents who have held on to the old-time teaching guidelines for raising children. And now it's time for this group to come together and prepare for battle. Because yeah, I think there really is a war to be fought and many battles to be won. And I don't think we ought to leave this important struggle to the government, because I suspect it's going to be as bungled as the war on drugs, and more recently, Katrina. So it's up to we parents to get the job done. And our second guest for this show, James DeBose, is going to talk to us about some changes he made in terms of winning the battle. Welcome to the show, James DeBose.
Thank you.
And
Thank
you are the father of 2, well, we can't call them children anymore. They're how old now?
2 young men, 27 and 24.
27 and 24. But you have told me, and of course we know I don't remember anything long, but the idea is that you discovered the patterns you were using for child raising needed some updating, and you discovered this when your young sons went to a private school. And
Yes.
I can be wrong, and you correct me. But
Well, you know,
give
basically you're correct in that sense, and we just found that some things weren't working, some things were coming into our home that we didn't think were appropriate, and we thought that it would be a good idea for us to intervene to find ways to make changes.
So what kind of things were coming home that you felt weren't appropriate?
Well, language that was not of any use to young people, a desire for social freedom that was beyond the limits that we thought were appropriate for their age.
I love the way you phrase that. Social freedoms that were beyond the limits. Okay, so what kind of social freedoms did the young men
Well, they
think
were
that-
going to school, and they were going to school with children who had no curfews, that had not much accountability. And we thought that accountability was something that you need as an adult, and accountability is something you need as a child.
Now you kind of thought this because somewhere in your background, some folks had made you accountable.
Absolutely. In fact, I can remember stories where I had to think of ideas of how to leave the dance without being embarrassed, because my parents had said that you can go to the dance, but you've got to be back here by a certain time.
And you got back.
Yes, yes. But then, of course, in raising my sons, we're talking about smarter kids, better educated, more articulate, and more of a quote freedom of speech, unquote, than I ever had.
No. The old days, you do as I said do.
That's right.
Nobody wanted to hear your viewpoint.
That's correct.
So, okay, so your kids now begin to think they ought to have certain freedoms that you weren't willing
because
to.
that was floating all around them.
That was the school setting, that
Yes.
was the academic environment they were in.
That's correct.
Okay, so what then was your path of correction? To help them understand the environment they were in was not the environment of home.
Correct. And we found that using the techniques that my parents used on me was draconian and wasn't going to work. So we had to find some middle ground. So we made contact with the Pasadena Mental Health Association that had parenting classes. And we took the class and we started to apply some of the techniques that we learned there, and it worked so well we ended up teaching the class.
So that's why I think as you're introduced here, they run your name, it said parent trainee and trainer,
yes.
Because you also went to the class. But I want you to let us know the draconian methods of which you were brought up under, which you decided weren't appropriate for current
For example, I think there's a way to discipline a child without using corporal punishment, with sparing the belt.
Your folks didn't spare the belt?
No, my father did not spare the belt,
okay.
and nor did my mother. But we got to a point where we had to look for other things, and in so doing, we found techniques such as thinking of logical consequences for
your
infractions,
actions.
for your actions. That's right. So, for example, when my son was 13, we had a curfew. 13 or 14 years old, you have to be in by midnight, and you have to tell us where you're going, and you have to go there and be accountable. And of course, your kids are going to try to be smarter than you.
Oh, babe, listen. When I used to do stand-up comedy, I had a line, because I truly believe they've all been to what I called parent torture school.
Yes.
I mean, they've got a pattern. And they're all about this. Oh, of course.
Yes.
Parents are dumb and kids are smart. Yes, so okay.
So we had a midnight curfew. You got to be a midnight curfew. Well, Marcus would come home at 12:30, 12:45, and of course, you never sleep until you get home.
Oh,
you never
of course
relax.
not.
You never stand down.
Nope.
So we had to be smarter. So we decided to come up with a response to that. Mm-hmm. Marcus, we won't use a time curfew per se. Mm-hmm. From this day forward, as long as you live in this house as a minor, if you leave on Monday, make sure it's Monday when you get back.
Okay.
If you leave on Friday, you look at the calendar, not at the clock.
No.
Make sure it is Friday when you get back. That ended the whole curfew breaking situation.
That's an excellent one.
It's easy to understand.
Well, not like he didn't understand the other one, but yeah. Very good. Okay,
Yeah.
so Marcus was then able to come home on the same day he left.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of consequences were people facing in your household when they didn't get the job done.
It means in the case of the curfew, if you broke the curfew, that means you weren't going to go out the next week.
Absolutely.
And if it was bad enough, it would be 2 weeks.
Okay.
In fact, one of the things that he was having friends, of some friends had wealth. We didn't have wealth, and they didn't have curfews. So he'd break the curfew, and one time he learned a lesson because they were TP in someone's house in San Marino, and all of a sudden he's the only kid left. The car, everybody jumps in the car. He doesn't get in the car. He's left in San Marino in front of this mansion, and he has to call us to come and get him. So it was a learning experience for him.
I would also imagine that there's a learning experience somewhere in here also. When you're at a private school with people of wealth, you aren't there with a lot of people who look like you.
Correct.
And so when you're talking about being out past the curfew and late into the night, we still have police and squad cars out there.
Yes.
Did they have one of those experiences?
Well, in that particular night I'm talking about, the police were involved.
Okay.
And they made a call, and fortunately they did not put him in the car, they just called us to come and get him. But that was enough for him to realize that there was differences, and he had to toe the line in terms of having fulfill his curfew and not his friends.
Yes, and as black parents, do you not find that we have to go a couple of steps beyond just parenting? Because there's some lessons there that our kids, and especially sons, need to know.
Exactly, and he learned them over time. He did learn them over time. And it was easier for the younger son because he witnessed what was going on.
What was going on.
Yeah. So
now, we're just about out of time, so what would you say was your biggest lesson learned by taking the classes and adding to and having to take some away from the own upbringing you had?
Using consequences that were not corporal punishment. So, you know, they would lose certain privileges, they would lose certain things that they were looking forward to down the road. But also, things like television, for example. Television was invading our house, so they had to learn how to teach themselves to monitor the video recorder so they could watch television from Saturday night until Sunday evening, because we saw education as their job. Monday through Friday, that was your job.
And you got that point across because they're now two young men who are very successful adults. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your experience, because it's always important for parents to hear another way.
Thank you for the opportunity.
This has been Talk About Parenting. I'm Shirley Smith. Remember, hug your kids 3 times every time you see them, but give them what for every time they need it. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please contact us. Has parenting changed? I asked that question at the beginning of this classic. So was the topic and the information still helpful? You tell me.